and welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And we are going to do something new. So welcome to my Man Plus Machine week. Now, I didn't really know what to call it. Man and machine, man in machine, machine in man. Um, so I just thought man plus machine. And it's basically a week of me going through my favorite cyborg AI movies. And yeah, so that's what we're going to do. And night one, we are going to begin with no surprise, is it? We are going to begin with 2014's Ex Machina, or as some say, Ex Machina. Potato, French fries, chips, taters. I don't know. So yes, we are going to go with Ex Machina. I absolutely love this movie. It's very interesting. So yeah. Now, Ex Machina came out in 2014, or was released in 2014. It is directed and written by Alex Garland, and it stars Alicia Vikander, which is Ava, Domhnall Gleeson, and Oscar Isaac. So yeah. I have my little screensaver. So, Ex Machina is about Caleb and Ava and Nathan and the trouble that they get into playing God, which is kind of like a lot of accusations for these kinds of movies always have that in there. And yeah, so let's get to the story. We have Caleb, who receives, it shows him in his office space at his terminal, where he receives a VIP email in which he is advised that he has won the grand prize of some kind of programming contest. So he is then flown off. We see him flying off into this really isolated countryside where he is dropped off by a copter and told to just walk down the river until you see what you need to see and you'll be there. So it's all, he's really left in the dark from the very beginning. I could imagine being dropped off in the middle of nowhere and told to follow a river until I got to something that looked like I should go in. And that's exactly what happens. So he gets there, he finally finds this little shack-looking place, and it wants his ID. It takes a picture of him, provides him a key card, and lets him into the facility. He goes down where he eventually manages to get out to a pool where he meets Nathan, our other protagonist. It's interesting the way that a lot of these movies are very, very small in cast, which is, I think that works sometimes because it allows you to get to know those characters a lot better because there's no one else. 240, 247 degree Fahrenheit, Scout Taylor Compton. That little horror movie was sort of like that, where it's a very limited cast. There was only a few people. I kind of enjoy movies like that. They don't all have to be like that, but I have no problem with a very, very small cast as long as it's the story's good. So they get to know each other, and I immediately I didn't really like Nathan that much. Caleb I liked. I didn't like Nathan. I could just tell from the beginning. First of all, I can't stand the way he looks, but he just seemed like a nutter, one of these nutty professors. You could kind of tell that at first you kind of think he's just a little off, but it's to a level of creepiness. And that's the way that Nathan made me feel. So he shows him to this really neat room in his little underground um, complex, and tells him about his card. It can only access certain things, and so he doesn't have to worry about which rooms he can go into or cannot, because if the card opens it, it's okay. If not, then there it is. He then makes him sign a really, really intense disclosure agreement, and Caleb is kind of like a little, he's a little bit, I'm not sure about that. And the guy's like, that's okay, you don't have to sign anything. We can just hang out for a week and then you can go home, but you'll miss the best thing in the world. The one of the greatest discoveries in the world, and so that's up to you. So of course, Caleb, being the little geek I would too, it's like, what the fuck, and he signs it, and then that's when he informs him that he has created an AI that he believes is real, a real AI. He then informs him that his purpose there is to be the human component in a Turing test. A Turing test is a test that you give to artificial intelligent computers to test whether or not they actually have consciousness, self-awareness, things like that. So once he's advised of that, told that he is going to be the component, we start having, because he's only there for a week, so we start having the movie split up basically by, well, it says sessions, but it's actually days. So he gets to meet Ava for the first time, and we get to meet Ava for the first time. And I really love the design. I really love Ava's design. Why he didn't present her in more of a completely human form, I don't know, because she doesn't have skin in most places except her face, and so she looks like a cyborg, but at the same time is supposed to be. But I guess he didn't want to distract from the purpose. I guess if you wanted to do a Turing test on an AI, you don't need to be distracted by them looking human. So I guess I agree with that part. So he gets to meet them, gets to meet her, and he's all fascinated. And that's pretty much an introductory session, which was really neat to watch. That night he goes back to his room and realizes that the TV, because he can't sleep, and I imagine a lot of people would. I wouldn't be able to sleep because I'm underground. But that kind of bothers him, but also I'm sure the excitement of what's going on. So he notices it's about 2 in the morning, and he turns on his telly, and he notices that he can actually, that it's not a telly, it's actually a CCTV, and it is her room that he can see. So he begins at the same time to notice that Nathan is kind of unstable, like I said from the beginning, and they begin to have these sessions where he is basically performing this test. In session 2, we get to see Ava is sort of turning it around on him. Ava begins to ask him personal questions, which I guess would be a really important part of the test, because I can sit and ask the AI about itself all at once, but what is the AI curious about? That would be important to me as well. What is the AI thinking about me? because that would certainly go a long way um, to see how much humanity or consciousness it had, would be how much it was curious about me. What did it want to know about me? I think I could judge a lot by what it wants to know about me. So I really agreed with that. And we also start seeing little power cutoffs, like the power would go down for momentarily, which don't put me underground and start having power outages. So my stress level would be pretty high. But we notice that there's these periodic power outages. Um, During this session, in session two, um, she actually, during one of the power outages, she actually tells him not to trust Nathan, which kind of freaks him out because you're supposed to be judging this AI, and here this AI is getting conspiratorial with you, um, telling him not to trust Nathan, that Nathan lies about everything. And then the power comes back on, and she continues the conversation as though she was still having it. So I would probably immediately start thinking that this entity was a lot more than I thought it was, because she's being devious, you know. So, you know, and then I put Nathan is an asshole. He is an asshole. But the next day when he's talking to Nathan, Nathan actually mentions the power cut, because he tells him, you know, I'm watching. Of course, he's watching the test being done, and he actually mentions the power cut. And here is where there's that one moment in which you go, is Caleb falling for it? Because there's two ways you can go. You could turn around and tell Nathan, yeah, that power cut. And you know what happened during that power cut? This is what Ava told me. So some people might choose that according to how they were judging this being. I think I would have went like him though, and that is, I think it's human nature during a conspiratorial moment for you to go with the conspiracy. We as human beings, and I think that's been proven, tend to, if somebody comes up and not anything outrageous like QAnon or something, but something simple like don't trust that person, there's something else going on that you don't know about. Most human beings would be on edge and would not say anything. They would go right along with it. And that's the choice that he makes as well. So in session 3, we go back, you know, they're talking again, and she wants him to close his eyes because she wants to surprise him. She goes back into her room where she puts on a dress and stockings and a wig, and comes out really looking like a human because you can't really see anything now. And that's the first glimpse I think that he gets to see of her humanity side, looking like us and not looking like a cyborg. So not only has he pretty much fallen for her humanity, but now he's actually visually being drawn into her as a living entity, which is again human nature. And that's what this whole movie is about. Nathan and his nature, Caleb and his nature, and Ava and her nature. That's the point. Is it a human nature? That's part of the test. And seeing her visually in a non-cyborg appearance really furthers, I think, Caleb's involvement with this conspiracy that she is insinuating is going on. So there is another power cut during this session. And he asked her this time, what were you talking about Nathan? Why did you tell me not to trust him? And she tells him that not only was he a liar and all of that, and not to trust him, that something's going on that he's not aware of, but she also lets him know at this time that she is the cause of the power outages. And she's very open about it and tells him that she has a way of causing this power surge and has been perfecting her interface with the system to be able to do these when she wants to do them. So now not only is she conspiratorial, but she is an active participant in something sneaky. And I think that really drags Caleb, and most humans would go even deeper with it, because she really is acting human. Not only that, but she's devious, she is up to something, and she is actively doing something behind Nathan's back. So she thinks. So once she admits that, that he ends up going and confronting Nathan, wanting to know, what is this really about? Because I don't believe for a second that I just won a prize for no reason at all. Why did you choose me in specific? Because it was a choice. You chose me specifically for this purpose. Me, as an individual. You've been spying on me, haven't you? You've been researching me. I fit the criteria that you needed. And as everything unfolds, that is, of course, the truth. And you can tell that. Because there was a lot of components that Nathan was trying to figure out. And he needed a good guy, a good heterosexual guy, for his different aspects of what we discover is actually really going on. So Ava had shown Caleb some pictures that she had drawn in one of the sessions. And he had informed her, that he would like to see her draw something, an object, something intentional, not just geometric designs, which any computer could do, but he would be interesting to see what she would choose, a place, an object, a person, something, that he would be interested in seeing that. So she had actually drew a picture of Caleb, his face, and it was ripped in half. And Caleb didn't understand how that happened, but she put that up as proof that Nathan was kind of sort of abusing her, that he was nasty, that he was up to something. So it furthered the conspiracy that she was trying to pull Caleb into. So what are we up to now? Session 5. Ava plays this neat little game of truth or lie to Caleb, where she asks him questions like his favorite color and stuff like that, and she shows him that because of her enhanced abilities, she's actually a walking lie detector. And even if he didn't know that he was lying, she can still tell, even if he didn't know it himself. Such as, I guess the example would be, she asked him his favorite color, and he said red, and she was like, no, that's not true. That's a lie. And he actually was confused because he thought that was his favorite color. But when he thought deeper about it, he realized that that was his favorite color when he was a kid, but now he didn't really have a favorite color. So you kind of wondered what was her purpose in playing this little game with him. And I think it's kind of obvious. The purpose in her playing this game with him was to, if you're going to join me, if you're going to be a part of whatever's going on, and you're going to basically choose sides, understand that I can tell. I think she was just showing off some of her abilities, and that ability would definitely give you pause if you were not on her side, because you know that she would be able to tell. So she ends up cutting the power again, and this time gets a little bit more forward, telling him that she likes him, wants to know if he really likes her, does he want to be with her, does he want to help her. Now, he doesn't know what kind of help she wants, but, you know, that he's like, he admits that he has been thinking about her. So, in the next conversation he has with Nathan, when he's talking all about this, he asks about the evolution of Ava, that he was, you know, what happened to the prototypes before, and Nathan, you know, ends up telling him that, yeah, there's prototypes and each one is better than the one before, and that, sure, that, you know, Ava would probably be replaced. Now, that was probably the worst thing that he could do, but I think he had to do that because he's testing Caleb just as much as Caleb is testing Ava, and she is correct that underneath it all, Nathan has his own purpose, and he's actually using both of them in this purpose. So Nathan ends up getting extremely drunk, and Caleb has got this curiosity now, and he gets Nathan's key while he's passed out, because that's another thing that Nathan was a total drunk. So he gets the key, and goes into Nathan's private rooms, goes into the lab, is actually able to access Nathan's terminal, where he then gets into all of his files, and he finds all of these horrible videos of the prototypes, and can tell that Nathan is an asshole. And some of the stuff that he done is beyond unethical, immoral, but I suppose his excuse would be they're machines, and how can you be unethical or immoral to a machine or abuse a machine? Would probably be a person like him, would probably be their answer to that, you know, scruples question, if you really get down to it. So he ends up sneaking the key back. He ends up sneaking the key back to Nathan when Nathan wakes up and is out looking for them. So, but he of course has gotten all of this information. So Caleb begins to wonder. It messes with his mind enough, because once he sees the cyborgs, the prototypes before Ava, he actually gets paranoid, because he believes that Ava is conscious. He believes that she is self-aware. And after seeing all of these prototypes, he actually has a moment where he thinks that maybe he's not real, that he is one of Nathan's creations, to the point where he actually cuts, pretty nasty cuts, his arm open. I'm glad he didn't hit a vein because he was deep and he cut his arm open trying to see, to make sure that he was really a human. So you know that you've been tripped out if what you see is so real that you end up thinking that perhaps you're a cyborg as well. So, but he comes back to his senses, after he realizes that yes, he probably is, and he goes and sees Ava again for another session, and she does her little thing where she cuts the power, and they actually plan an escape. That Cal tells Ava that Nathan is going to, in what he has come to determine, that she is a conscious, self-aware entity. So he actually believes that, he's going to kill her. And because he would consider it killing a life form. So he comes up with this plan that she is going to cut the power at 10 p.m. And that he'll program everything to unlock and stuff like that. So they actually come up with this plan to escape. So now we're up to the last day, and Caleb tries to instigate this plan. When Nathan tells him that it's the last day and that the helicopter will be coming, the heli will be coming tomorrow to pick him up, and that they had a wonderful time. And Caleb actually tries to, like I said, initiate this plan by getting Nathan drunk again, because he's been a drunk the whole time. So, interestingly enough, though, Nathan says, nope, last night was the last drunk. I am, on, what do you say, brown rice and mineral water. I'm not going to drink anymore. And so that just fucked up that plan. So the plan is fucked, and Nathan tells Cal that he knows a lot more about what's been going on than he thinks he does. He had actually put a camera, battery-operated camera, into Ava's rooms, so he actually saw and heard what they were talking about when the power cuts happened. And he lets him know that that part of his test was to see if Caleb would be taken in by a conspiracy by Ava, because that would prove to Nathan that she was human. To come up with those kinds of motives, that his AI was real. And so he admits to Caleb that Caleb has been used just as much as Ava has been used, all to satisfy Nathan's plots and plans. So he told him that he knew Ava wanted to escape. He knew that she wanted to escape all along. And he wanted to bring in a person susceptible, or that he felt was susceptible. They had to be able to be attracted to this female cyborg. They had to be a good person that has shown morals and stuff like that to be able to fall for it. So he had really indeed chosen Caleb to test Ava for his own purpose. And he had chosen Caleb to be tested by this situation, which is actually what a manipulative, super genius, gazillionaire, it's like, would you expect anything different of Bill Gates if he had an idea and you worked for him? They don't see the human component, and Nathan certainly doesn't. He's beyond all that. So, in the meanwhile, now I haven't mentioned her yet, but there is another cyborg that he had made named Kyoko. Now, Kyoko is basically a slave of every kind, which is also kind of creepy. But and he even made it to where she couldn't understand human language, so that no matter what was said, she could never understand and tell the secrets. So at this point, because we've seen her all through the movie, I just haven't talked about her, but we see her actually go and see Ava, and there's some kind of connection between them, and that's probably because, you're talking about Ava here, so she could break through that barrier. No language. She could break through that. After all, they're both machines. So Ava obviously has a way to contact her. And interestingly enough, you really do see that Ava had never seen her before. They make that very clear. So I did wonder what caused Kyoko, because Kyoko has been hearing them talk about Ava. So I'm not really sure. She may not can understand language, but somehow or another she knew something was going on. So she ends up going down there and seeing Ava, and you can tell they have some kind of communication. And Ava immediately brings her into the plot without even using language to do it. Probably some kind of binary. That's what I think was going on. She initiated some kind of binary conversation with her. So, while Nathan, this is going on while Nathan is sort of confessing all to Caleb about, haha, it is what it is, and I've used you to prove my point, and there's nothing that you can do about it, because I know all about your little plans, and you're not going to get away with it, but it's okay. It's okay. I'm not going to do anything. You're going to go home, and things are going to move forward. You've served your purpose. Well, then there is like a sort of mini twist, because Caleb turns right back around to him and says, that's okay, because I I suspected that you knew. So that little code that I told you about, that was part of the plan, that I was going to put into the system to unlock all the doors, I already did that. That part of the plan was not something I was fixing to do. That's something that I had already done. Now, the power goes out on time like it's supposed to. And that's when Caleb had said that, was, see, well, she's carried her part, but it doesn't matter because I know about it, and you're not able to do your part. But that's when Caleb informs him the stuff I just told you about how that's not really necessary because I already put that code into your system. So right now, the doors are open. Well, Nathan jumps up and knocks Caleb out. I mean, sucker punched right under the chin, knocks his ass out cold. And he goes running down there because they're loose, right? Ava is loose. And he knows that. So he goes down there and he finds Ava in the hallway. And Ava also has Kyoko in the hallway. And she does these little touch things on her arm and some kind of binary stuff in her eyes. And that's the way they've been communicating. And Kyoko has this really big kitchen butcher knife type thing. And Nathan's at one end of the hall, and when he sees Ava, he's like, you need to go back to your room. And Ava starts like walking towards him, and he stupidly isn't really afraid of Ava. Like, I mean, he thinks he's got her under a lot more control than he actually does, which is the point of the movie. So he goes up there, she goes up there and like attacks him, and he's holding her, grabbing her, fighting with her, and stuff like that, and he ends up like knocking her to the floor. He ends up knocking her arm off, breaking her arm off, and he starts to grab her and pull her down the hallway because, you know, you're going back to your room, and man, you didn't even see it coming, be it Kyoto. And that kill is very interesting because she just slides that knife right into his back, and he turns around and he like knocks the whole bottom half of her head off, and so she falls down out of commission. And Ava pulls the knife out of his back, which probably hurt like a mofo, and he turns around and faces her in utter shock, and she just slides it right through his heart. And a lot of people would say, well, wouldn't you die instantly? So, no, she left the knife in. 'Cause, I mean, I've heard people say that they didn't think that kill was extremely accurate because, you know, right through your heart, and it was right through his heart, that would kill you like pretty much instantly. But it actually wouldn't, because the knife is still in there, so it's not bleeding out as quickly as you think it is. So he ends up like, the way that he walks down that hall is really fascinating to watch because you can see the what the fuck all over his face. He is so arrogant, which is understandable. You know, his reaction was very understandable because someone arrogant enough, I mean, he's been a millionaire, billionaire since he was 14. God, can you imagine all that he's done? And he has this idea that he has control over life and death. He does believe himself to be some kind of god. So his death is just literally shocking to him. And they did play that very, very well. So Caleb has woke up from his little floor nap that Nathan gave him. And he comes down to the end of the hall where the door is, but Ava has shut the door. So he is sort of trapped in Nathan's private area, because that's where they were having the little discussion. And Ava goes to where the other prototypes are, and she gets a new arm from the previous prototype. And since that has nothing to do with the brain or anything, that's mechanical. She put it on, and she put the skin of the prototype on her and chose the wig, the hairpiece, and she really does look like a perfectly normal human woman. And as she leaves, you kind of, I really knew she wouldn't kill Caleb, but at the same time, she kind of did. Because how the hell is he going to get out? So she walks out of the place where he is screaming at her to not leave him there. And she leaves. She goes up and sees the helicopter, and the copter comes, and she's walking towards it, and everything is fine, and you see Caleb stuck in those rooms, unable to get out. Now, I did try to go back to see whether or not those rooms were connected to his bedroom and to his area, because he did have like food and drink and everything in his area. So I guess you just have to go back and really look at the area that he was in, because she has now trapped him in that area, and there is no way out. Somebody would have to come, and that left you with all of these questions as to whether Caleb is going to live or not, because that place is a fortress and nobody can get in, right? I mean, you have to pass the security checkpoint to even go down in it. I guess a helicopter wouldn't come unless it was called. So unless Caleb has some way, which he couldn't find anyway, that was the last thing that they showed you, was he couldn't find any way out. So who's going to come to this isolated spot in time for him not to starve to death or thirst to death? So that was an interesting question that it left, was, did Caleb get out? I guess you can just assume however you want it, and just kind of use that as your ending. And then we see her in the city at a intersection, which is exactly what she said when he had asked her in one of the sessions if she could go anywhere in the world, where would she want to go? And that's what she ended up choosing, was a busy intersection in a city, because all manner of humanity would be walking back and forth in front of her. And that's how the movie ended, leaving you to wonder how and if Caleb ever gets out. And that's it. That's Ex Machina. Now, like I said, I love the philosophical questions that it leaves you with. I think Caleb lived, but that's because I want Caleb to live. So, I think he's smart enough to find a way out. The biggest thing, like I said, does he have access to some sort of food or water, especially water? Does he have access in the place where the part of the complex that he was trapped in? Does he have access to food and water? Because like in his bedroom, he had a giant fridge full of bottled water and stuff. So you might have to deep dive and go and look at that area and see whether he had any food or water left. And what is she going to do? I mean, she did kill Nathan, but she had to kill Nathan. That was self-defense. And she left Caleb in a bad situation. But was it a sure death situation? She didn't kill him. She also didn't speak to him. So she is capable of ignoring that human after having used him to get what she wanted. So what's she going to do out there? We see that she can defend herself if she feels threatened. We see that she can dismiss the human after she's used it. Because he did nothing but help her escape. He did nothing wrong to her at all. So yeah, you're left with those questions. What is she going to do out there? And that is 2014's Ex Machina. Have you seen it? Do you like it? What do you think about it? What philosophical questions does it give you? And that's it. That is day one of Man plus Machine Week. And I will see you in my next choice. And we're going to have 7 days. That's a week. And we're going to have Man plus Machine Week. I've chosen my 7 kind of favorites. There's some that I would like to do too, but a week is a week, and a week is enough, right? So I needed to choose 7, so that's what we're going to do. I can do some of the rest, and no, artificial intelligence is not one of them. I did have it on the list, AI, you know, Spielberg, AI. I did have it on the list, but then I changed it for another one, and I really was just going to try to keep it to 7. So I'm going to do several of these. I want to do a Shark Week. I want to do Classic Slasher Week. I want to do some like themes like that. I think it will be, I will have fun with it in any event, which is all I'm really here for, is to have fun and talk to movies with you lovely peoples. And yeah, so I'll see you in the next one. Always remember, never forget, you, like Ava, are a very special and unique individual. Never let anyone tell you different. No matter what they are doing or saying to you, you are the only one of you. Support indie horror, please. That's usually where the best horror is at, is indie, to me anyway. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Love you, miss you, bye. And we'll be back shortly, or I'll be filming shortly, and you will see it the next day. I'm also not going to drop these until I have filmed all 7 of them, so that, you know, I don't have an interruption in my week. So might be a week before I start dropping these, but yeah, I will see you then. Bye bye. Keep screaming, but only when appropriate. Later.